Topic under leadership, how to build a successful team of people. Finding the right people is always a unique challenge. And this is how to build a successful team of people to accomplish a specific purpose. Now, if you don't have a specific purpose, then you can probably just use most anybody. But if you've got a purpose, you know, whether it's a sales purpose or an office purpose or a real estate purpose or a church purpose or a organization purpose or a championship team, right? If you're going to build an organization of people for a specific accomplishment, then you've got to have the right people. And let me just give you a little checklist we use around the world trying to find the right people. First, there's a checklist of 3 things. First, you check interest. And checking a person's interest, there's probably several ways you can do it. One is, I guess, by resume. What someone has done in the past may indicate their interest for the future. But the best way really to check interest is face-to-face. You know, you just got to look at somebody and have them look back and get into conversation and talk about the enterprise and talk about, you know, the job description, you know, what it's all about, to find a person's true interest. Now, in the role of leadership, you do have to be cautioned that some people are going to try to fake you out. So you've got to get ready for that. But if you do it often enough, person to person, face to face, you can get good at really checking a person's true interest. I guess Jesus, master teacher, was the best at it. The story says one day a group came to him and said, Master, we wish to be your disciples. Jesus said, gentlemen, you have put your story on the wrong person. Because unfortunately, I can read your heart. They said, oh. See, they weren't wanting to be disciples. They had all kinds of trickery in mind, but that was the upfront show of interest. We wish to be your disciples. But see, he read them just right off the bat. Now, you might not get that good at it, right, to where you can read hearts. But I'll tell you what, though, if you will practice, if you'll be sensitive, if you'll look, if you won't miss anything, you can get very good at reading true interest, to really check that against what you hear in the conversation that's going on. Now, of course, here's where the woman comes in with her extra special gifts, right? See, if a man's having problems recruiting someone or talking to another man and he's not quite sure, then he just lets a woman sit in on the conversation and says, you just sit and listen while I talk to this gentleman, and then you give me your feelings. And sure enough, you know, she'll tell you. You know, when it's over, you just consult with her. Say, how'd you feel? She'll say, hey, I felt great. Or she will say, I don't think so, right? Because the women have this uncanny sense of danger or something doesn't ring a bell. But, you know, men can get good at it. But anybody who practices this art of really trying to judge true interest can get better and better at it. Now, no matter how good you get, you're still going to make some errors in judgment. Jesus said, I'll take you. And that was Judas. I mean, so you are going to make, you know, some errors. So that helps me, right, to know when I make some errors. Now, so first of all, you check interest. Here's the second thing you check is response. A person might be interested in the pay, or they might be interested in, you know, the opportunity or the future, but you also have to check response. How they respond to the job description. Are they excited and eager about whatever it takes to do it to get the job done? If somebody says, you have to get there how early? You have to stay how late? Go home in the middle of the traffic? The breaks only, what was that again? 10 minutes? You just have to say, next, right? You just don't have the right person because the response is wrong. Then third thing you check to build a successful team of people is results. And I don't know any substitute for that. Finally, you must judge by results. Results must soon match quality. You might have a nice person, a good person, but unless you start getting early results, then you just don't have the right person. And it isn't that the wrong person may be a bad person. It's just that they are not the right person for the job, for the skill, for whatever needs to be accomplished. You know, the great coach John Wooden, I'm sure, said to the supposedly skilled young basketball player, he says, "Sir, can you hit it from the corner? I got to have me a corner man who can hit it from the corner." And, well, how are we going to know if you can hit it from the corner? Right? John says, "Well, I'll just stand here, and you just fire away, and I'll count." That's how you finally tell. Just launch a few, and I'll just keep score here, because I got to have somebody who can hit it from the corner. And the early part of activity doesn't need to be the final results. The results can be, did you make the calls? This job calls for at least 10 calls a day. So the next morning, we get the little sheet out, and I say, "John, how many calls on that 10 did you make yesterday?" John says, "Well," say, "the well won't even fit in the box." And sure enough, I've got this indication John's going to come up with a story, and the story for sure won't fit in the box. I say, "John, the box is too small for the story. All I need is a number. 1, 3, 5, 8, 7. Just give me the number and I'll put it in the box." See, finally, you must judge by results. Because that's the name of the game, right? Results. Now, we all need to give people time for results, but finally, you must judge by results. We don't judge by stories. We just let the numbers speak for themselves. We let the activity that we've set up. Now, make sure when you recruit somebody, put somebody on, and you're developing an organization, whatever you're doing, make sure everybody understands up front what the requirements are, so that now when you get to check the requirements, there was no misunderstanding at first as to what was required for the job or the activity and to get it done, okay? But finally, you must judge by results. The Bible's full of all those illustrations, right, and stories about human life and human behavior and activity and what to expect and what's going on. Incredibly rich. There was one story, said Jesus and his disciples were walking along this road, I guess after a hard day's work. They're heading home. And one of the disciples said, "There's a fig tree. Let's go over, have some figs, relax a little bit, and then continue our journey." And evidently the master thought it was a good idea, so the story says they all went off the side of the road to this fig tree. And it must have been the season of the figs, right? Or they wouldn't have said, "Let's go have some figs." So they walk over to this fig tree, and they look all around it, inside and out, check it all out, and to their very great disappointment, on this fig tree, in the season of the figs, there were no figs. On a fig tree. Very quickly, according to the story, Jesus said, "Take this tree out." That's what he said. A fig tree is supposed to have figs. Take this one out. Now, something interesting happened, though. Something interesting happened. The story says, one of them said, "Master, look, let's make a deal." Right? And God's always been in the deal-making business. Really. In reading the whole Bible. And sometimes it's kind of a game that's played. It says God and Satan got together one day. And Satan said, "I got a deal for you. You got this guy Job, he's a favorite of yours. But if you'll let me at him, I'll make him curse you before he dies." God said, "No way. He's my special favorite. He would never curse me." Satan said, "Try me." God says, Interesting proposition. Now, poor Job doesn't know this conversation's going on. Wow. Who knows what all's going on, right? I don't know what all's going on. But God thought that over and said, hey, wait just a minute. I'll tell you what, Satan. I'll let you at him, but the only thing you can't do, because it's true, I've protected him up until now. And Satan said, yeah, you got a wall around him. I can't even get to him. But if you take the wall down, I guarantee he'll curse you. God said, no way. He said, try me. God says, well, I'll tell you what. I'll let you do anything but kill him. Satan said, that's all I need. They make this deal. And now, sure enough, Satan goes after Job, according to the story. Takes his family, takes all of his possessions, afflicts him with sickness and boils, ruins his reputation. And now he's sitting on an ash heap, scraping his sores. His wife says, why don't you curse God and die? He said, get away from me, woman. He said, the good Lord gave me all this, and whatever he gives, he can take away. God's up there smiling. And he never did curse God. So Satan had to come back and say, you got you quite a man. I did my best. God probably says, I told you. Right? Now God says, well, I've played this game now with Job. What can I do to make it up to him? Because if you play games with your friends, you got to make it up to him, right? So God says, well, I got to think of something. So he says, I know what I'll do. I'll just multiply by 7 whatever he had to begin with. Which is probably what you should do if you play those kind of games, right? Multiply it at least by 7. So who knows what all's going on? But the Bible is rich in so many incredible stories. But this one, you know, the master teacher said, take the fig tree out. But the disciples said, one of them said, look, we come by this way all the time. Give us a chance with this tree. We'll dig around it, see if we can work with it. And the next time we come by here, the next season, then we'll have some figs. Jesus said, you got a deal. So evidently they worked with this tree. And sure enough, the story flashes back and says they came along that road the next season for the second time. One of them said, there's our tree, let's go have some figs. And for the second season in a row, they went over, checked out this fig tree, and sure enough, to their great disappointment, for the second season in a row, no figs. Without hesitation, Jesus this time said, take this tree out. And he added, why let it take up the ground? And I guess that means fig trees better have figs. So you just have those meetings every once in a while. You call everybody together and say, today we checking the figs. To see who gets to stay. I don't know what else you do. Finally, you got to check by results. You judge by results in the final analysis. Okay. Now here's another key to leadership. In building a successful team of people, learn to work with the people who deserve it, not the people who need it. Key point, learn to work with the people who deserve it, not the people who need it. Now, you've got to set up ahead of time who deserves it. When you bring somebody into the enterprise, you just set it up. Say, when you do this, then we do this. And when you add this to it, then we step in here. When you do all this, then the company, here's what we do after you've done all this. Make sure all those guidelines are clear when you set it up. Now then you know who deserves it. Somebody says, well, I've done this, and you say, fine, okay, we'll step in, we'll do this, we'll give you the backup. You don't respond to need, you respond to who deserves. Now, remember, the pull is in the opposite direction. Guess who wants your help? Usually the wrong people. It's usually the people who need it, not the people who deserve it. But you must, in an enterprise, you must learn to respond to the people who deserve, not the people who need. There's plenty of other places for your benevolence, you know. But in your enterprise, you respond to the people who deserve. The next key under leadership in working with a team of people is learn not to linger too long. Now, you've got to have some patience, right, in working with people. You've got to give people time, but not forever. You can't linger too long. And that's another Bible story, right? Jesus got his disciples together one day and said, look, we're going to go evangelize the world. We've been together 3.5 years. It's now time to put the story on the people. And sure enough, the last 2,000 years, it's been a unique project, evangelizing the world. He said, here's how we're going to do it to start with. We're going to divide up 2 by 2. You 2 take that city. You 2 take that city. Story said he divided them up 2 by 2 and sent them out to the various cities and said, go to the city, 2 of you tell the story. Then he said, if they buy the story fairly soon, stay. I guess, right? Put it all together, start the classes, get the church going, whatever. Get the synagogue rolling, whatever it was in those days. And build and grow. But he said, if you walk into a city and you tell the story and they don't respond fairly soon, he said, don't stay. Leave. Now see, that's excellent leadership advice. Don't stay. And the reason is there's too many cities that will to linger long with those that won't. And you're not there to change anyone anyway. You're there to find people who respond to the story. That's who you're looking for, the people who respond. You're not there to wrestle them to the ground. So share and look. Share, look, and pick. And it's easy to pick. You pick the ones who respond. But he said, don't stay. Then he also added, when you walk out of one of those cities that doesn't respond, wipe your shoes off. Right? Whatever that meant. I'm sure in those days that, no telling what that meant. There's some modern gestures that are easier to understand, but, you know. But he did say, don't stay, don't linger too long. And the reason is because there's too many prospects. There's too many people who would be willing and happy for the story, saying, I'm glad you came my way. I've been waiting for this story, right? There's so many like that you don't want to wrestle and worry and try to change people who are not going to respond. So that's good leadership information. Don't linger too long. Next is, don't expect the pear tree to bear apples. Let everybody do what they can do. You can teach on apples and hang apples on a pear tree, try to get it started. You can put up a sign that said, this is an apple tree. I mean, you can play all kinds of tricks. But sure enough, come season, you got pears. So let people do what they're going to do. Find out what the response is. Find out where people can fit in your organization. Let them fit there. Let them grow to that position. Okay, let people become what they're going to become, be what they're going to be. But leadership learns the skill of selectivity rather than trying to remake people, because you can't make people become successful. Then one more point on building a successful team of people, 2 more. One is, leadership should learn when you've got too many people for any one single enterprise. You've got too many that have lost touch, they've lost out, they've fallen behind. Just every once in a while you got to go through and rework your list and go through and see who's still got the fire and the excitement and the joy and the vigor and the vitality. And then you've also got to analyze who have lost it. And that's just part of the process of building a good team. You just got to go through. You just got to take a fairly frequent look to see who you've got. Because sometimes you wind up with too many. And that's an Old Testament Bible story, right? Story of Gideon, the Jewish hero, military hero. Interesting story. Story says, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Gideon and said, you've been chosen to raise an army and chase off the Midianites. And the Israelites were having a problem with the Midianites. I guess they were in God's doghouse for a while, right? And he sent the Midianites along to, rough them up and push them around and give them all kinds of heartache and trouble. And the Midianites were good at it because they were mean and ugly. They were bad news. But I guess finally they'd learned their lesson, right? And it was time for the Midianites to go. So the word was, Gideon, you raise the army, chase off the Midianites. Gideon said, no problem. Promptly became one of the world's all-time great recruiters. I don't know what all he did. Put up a little booth, join now, you know, whatever. Clever advertising. But anyway, he got the job done. Within a short period of time, Gideon raised an army of 32,000. Short time. Is fairly proud of himself. Brings his 32,000 to the good Lord and said, I did as you commanded. I now have an army. We're ready for the Midianites. Good Lord says, good job, Gideon. You got to be one of the earth's noble. However, we got a problem. Gideon says, what is it? I'll fix it. The good Lord said, well, I appreciate your recruiting effort, but you got too many. Gideon says, wow, I don't understand that. The Midianites were mean. They were bad. Gideon might have said, I wished I had about 10,000 more. And to take a look at the Midianites, he could have done with 10,000 more. But anyway, the good Lord says, hey, take my word for it. You got too many. And Gideon says, well, what shall I do? The good Lord says, try this. Get them all together in one place, stand up, give your last ringing military speech. We're going to go conquer the Midianites. When you finish with your speech, say, if there's anybody here that's afraid we're going to lose the upcoming fight with the Midianites, you can be excused, no questions asked, just go home. Can't use you. Gideon said, clever idea. Got them all together, gave his last ringing military speech, wound it up by saying, if there's anybody here that's afraid with the upcoming battle that we're going to lose, you can just quietly go home. We don't need you. And sure enough, some left that were afraid they were going to lose. And the number was 22,000. Now, I don't know if they wrote pink slips or what they did, right? But Gideon says, how true. If you've got 32,000 and 22,000 think you're going to lose, guess what? You're going to lose. You can't use that many losers. Gideon says, home. 22,000 go home. Gideon says, no problem, we'll do it with 10. And the good Lord said, you've still got too many. Gideon says, well, what now? The good Lord says, try this. March the 10,000 till they're hot and thirsty down by the river. And when you get to the river, the ones that just jump in, throw their spear down, throw their shield down, just jump in the water and start drinking. Said, you can't use them. They're too reckless. They're too careless. They're not vigilant. And you don't have time to train them. But the ones that keep the spear and the shield and just lap the water like a dog and keep looking around, those are the ones that are ready. And those are the troops you can use to fight the battle. Gideon said, how clever. Marches the 10,000 till they're hot and thirsty down by the river. And sure enough, some jumped in. They were careless. They threw down their spear, threw down their shield, jumped in the water, started drinking. And the number was 9,700. 300 that were left. Got the spear and the shield. Right? Gideon says, you 9,700 home. So they go dripping home. Gideon now has 300 out of 32,000 and says, no problem. However, we got to have a clever plan. So he puts together this incredibly clever plan. He says, what we will do, we'll use the element of surprise. In the middle of the night, we will surround the camp, and we'll space ourselves all around the camp of the Midianites. And Gideon says, when I give the word, we'll have a pitcher with a light in it. And we'll break that, show the light, and we'll each have a trumpet. And we'll blast on the trumpets, and then we'll scream and yell like Comanches. Or like something, whatever. That's what he said. 300 say, no problem. Sure enough, they surrounded the camp, middle of the night. Midianites were asleep. Gideon gives the signal. They break the pitchers, show the light in the middle of the night, blast on these trumpets, and they scream and yell. The Midianites were asleep. they came awake hearing this incredible sound. It sounded like there were 300,000. They got so frightened and so confused, they started fighting each other. Story says most of them went by their own sword, and the ones that were left are making it over the hill, 300 in hot pursuit. And Gideon becomes the great military hero. His story is preserved, and part of the lesson is when you start an enterprise and you want to accomplish something, you got to keep checking to make sure you haven't got too many that have lost the joy, they've lost the excitement, they've lost the vigor and the vitality and the feeling for success, and you just got to go through and find some little tests or something that will start showing you who you've got that's going to help you get the job done. It's part of the challenge of leadership. Now here's one more. In building a successful team of people, leadership must understand the fact that there is both good and evil. When the leaders of our country, the founding fathers, put this country together, they considered the fact of both good and evil. They said, our real challenge is how to have just enough law to limit the bad side of our nature, and how to have maximum liberty to encourage and entice the good side of our nature, since we are both good and bad. For whatever reason, it is a fact. There is both good and evil. Now here's what leadership must understand. Some people have given themselves over to the bad side. They've sold out. So you've just got to be careful as a leader. It's part of the responsibility of leadership to guard the flock, to guard the enterprise, to be watchful, be careful. Some people have sold out. Some people are troublemakers. You just got to learn to spot that. And some people are good producers, but they're troublemakers. But you can't afford their production. They will cause more misery than they will progress. It's part of the role of leadership. See, the real challenge of life is to be the least of the bad in us and the most of the good in us. But some people have just let the evil side of their nature overwhelm them, and they've sold out. So leadership must understand there is both good and evil. You got to be on the lookout for those, even though they're talented, even though they might have ability. You've just got to watch, because you can't afford their presence. And that brings me to the story of the frog and the scorpion. According to the story of the frog and the scorpion, the story says the frog and the scorpion appeared on the bank of the river at the same time. And the frog was about to jump in the river, swim to the other side. The scorpion happened to come along at the same time and observed what was happening. And when he saw the frog about ready to jump in the river, swim to the other side, he engaged the frog in conversation. He said, "Wait, Mr. Frog, I see you're about to jump in the river, swim to the other side." Mr. Frog said, "That's correct." The scorpion said, "Look, I also want to get to the other side, but unfortunately I'm a scorpion, and I can't swim. Would you be so kind as to let me hop on your back? You swim across the river, deposit me on the other side. I would be so grateful, since I can't swim." The frog looked at the scorpion and said, "No way." He said, "You're a scorpion, and scorpions sting frogs. They kill them." He said, "I'd get out there about halfway and you'd sting me and I'd drown. I'm not going to do that. You think I'm crazy?" The scorpion said, "Hey, with your frog brain, you're not thinking." He said, "Sure, I'm a scorpion, but if I was to sting you out there halfway, you would drown, but so would I. I can't swim, so I'm not going to do that. I want to get to the other side." Frog said, "Sounds reasonable. Hop on." According to the story, the scorpion hops on the frog's back, and the frog starts across the river. When he gets halfway, the scorpion stings the frog. They are now both in the water, about to go down for the third time. The frog cannot believe what has happened. He says in his dying gasp, "Why did you do that? I'm about to drown, but so are you. Why would you do that?" And the scorpion said, "Because I am a scorpion. You must understand, scorpions sting frogs." And as a wise leader, you must not take any chances. So, leadership should understand the story of the frog and the scorpion, and they must also understand the fact that there is both good and evil. Study these 5 subjects. First is, be a student of possibility. Possibility. What's possible? The most incredible things are possible, and once you make the study, read the stories, look into it, you understand possibilities are everywhere. Dr. Schuler's got the group called the Possibility Thinkers, right? I was a guest speaker for him one Sunday morning, a long time ago. The Possibility Thinkers. That's good. Be a possibility thinkers. Keep reading the stories. Keep studying all of the possibilities. And keep looking for new possibilities in your own enterprise, with your own life, what's going on. Okay? Number 1, be a student of possibility. Number 2, be a student of opportunity. Opportunity in business, opportunity in the changing times, opportunity everywhere. Make sure you just take a look at all the opportunities in your own enterprise. Sometimes you don't have to go looking far for opportunity. It's right there. I know over the last half a dozen years, a lot of real estate people sold real estate, but they never bought any. Don't miss the opportunities. A man now has 1 home and 2 cars. What he really should have is 1 car and 2 homes. Okay. Make sure you don't miss the opportunities, because a lot of them are right there, right there. Okay. Don't pass up, but be a student of opportunity. Third, be a student of ability. Humans have the most incredible ability, and be a student of your own ability. No telling what you could learn if you tried. No telling what skill you could develop if you tried. No telling what you could accomplish in your own ability. I've discovered some incredibly unique people that had the ability, and it just wasn't obvious to begin with. I found Harold Dyke up in Canada about 23, 24 years ago. And we met socially, but I took a look right away and I said, here's a unique young man. He was 28 years old. He'd been working for the railroad in Canada for 10 years, started when he was 18, right out of high school. He was now 28 years old, been there 10 years, and he was making $325 a month, something about like that. And he was getting a bit discouraged. He said, I looked 4 desks over from me, and there's a man, 45, making $600-700 a month. And he said, you mean I'm going to go from now till age 45, move 3 desks, and make $600-700 a month? He said, I was just getting a little discouraged with my prospects there. Well, anyway, I came along and I met him, and I knew he had unusual ability. So I recruited him, hired him, he went to work for me. His first year with me, he made over $45,000 from a $325 clerk to $45,000 his first year. Incredible. Now he's a very successful businessman. Incredible, unique gentleman. And the railroad had him for 10 years and never discovered his unusual abilities, right? So sometimes you got people right around you. You got to make sure you discover, in the role of leadership, discover the people who've got the ability, and then make sure you discover your own ability. See, some things you just don't know till you try. You just don't know till you see if you can do it. So be a student of ability. Fourth, be a student of inevitability. That's important. Inevitability means, on your present course, where will you most inevitably arrive? Learn all the inevitable stories. Sure enough, if you do it long enough. Sure enough, if you indulge long enough. Sure enough, if you neglect long enough. Sure enough, it's just predictable. It's inevitable. Inevitable. That's being 200 feet from Niagara Falls in a little boat with no motor and no oars. It's inevitable. In fact, it's over. It's too late. When you can hear the roar of the falls and you're 200 feet, little boat, no motor, no oars, see, it's too late. Somebody should have painted you that picture way upstream and said, here's where you don't want to find yourself. And if somebody's skillful enough to paint the roar of the falls, to paint the scene of panic and desperation, and we all need these inevitable scenes painted for us. And as a leader, you need to get good at painting them yourself. For young people, older people, business people, in social affairs, whatever, learn to paint the inevitable. Study the inevitable and learn to paint the inevitable so that you can help people with the pictures of where surely their neglect will take them, where surely their delay will take them, where surely their current habits will take them. You just paint the pictures, inevitable pictures. So be a student of inevitability. Here's the last one, and it's very important. Be a student of rationality. How to come to good conclusions from all that you've taken in. And that's a real challenge. Rationality. How should I proceed based on all I know? How shall I take all that I've gathered up and use it for the future? Making a rational conclusion based on input. Now here's also the key to your future. Make sure the conclusions for your procedure are your own. Take input, yes, but not orders. Instructions, yes. Advice, yes. Information, yes. Somebody's opinion, yes. Orders, no. Make sure your procedure is the product of your own conclusion. That's how you grow. And for leadership, you must really become skillful at coming to good personal conclusions based on all the input. Don't be afraid of advice. Don't be afraid of opinions. Don't be afraid of input. Take it all, but then come to your own conclusions.
Hello there. It's great to see you again. So, what conclusions did you come to while listening to Jim? Did any of those challenges that he talked about seem familiar to you? Maybe you've encountered most, if not all of them, in your role as a leader. Based on what you've just learned, how do you think you've handled things so far? Have you been moving in the opposite direction of the normal negative pull, or have you been allowing the wrong percentage of people to pull you down away from your goals and achieving success? What about some of the leaders in your life, your boss or manager or coaches or mentors? How do they deal with these everyday leadership challenges? I would love to hear from you and learn what you took away from this massive amount of information Jim just shared. Let me know how Jim's lessons will help alter your leadership style, or what hints and suggestions you have for being an effective leader. So go ahead and share your thoughts and experiences with others in the comments section below. And I look forward to seeing you in our next session.